Hello everyone, this is Santiago Vásquez.
And I'm Martin Cervantes.
And welcome to the DOTTE Pod.
Where communication truly matters. Yes.
Here we go. We live in tough times, but guess what? We are all about being positive in our podcast, and our goal is to educate people.
And keeping it real.
That's right.
Keeping it real. This is the real thing. We don't have any actors and actresses and all this professional. Well, we have professional people.
We do have.
Yeah, but not professional actors. Right?
Are you an actor?
Well, you are.
I don't know if I'm an actor, but I can tell you, I can tell you this: we have to keep the communication open.
Yes, sir.
That is part of our First Amendment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Even if I disagree with you, I must accept the fact that you have that constitutional right to express yourself.
Well, I don't think we have really disagreed on anything.
I disagree with you all
Yeah,
the
not
time.
yet.
I disagree with you.
Not
all
on
the time.
camera.
But that's all right. And
No.
today we have a very special day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is a very special day. I've known this man for over 15 years now. And it was weird how we met. You know, it was an incident that happened at one of the high schools that my son was involved in. Well, he wasn't really involved. And we clarified the whole thing, and we just became good friends. Sergeant Gary Washington from our Kansas City, Kansas School Police Department. So, welcome, sir.
Welcome to the DOTTE Pod. Well, it's amazing because I also know Sergeant Washington due to my law enforcement background, but also we have something in common. We have this love and passion for the martial arts.
Something that I just found out when I saw you guys in the parking lot doing your thing. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, he was doing the classical Kempo or Chinese also bow.
Okay.
You know, and I utter the word osh, which is a Japanese expression, like the contraction for oshishinobu. Osh.
Okay.
Oshishinobu.
See,
Discipline.
we learn something every day. We learn something every day.
Welcome to the DOTTE Pod, sir. We're honored to have you here.
Yes. I know you serve our country for over 30 years. You've been involved in law enforcement and the military, and you know, he's also a man that I've learned a lot from.
A man of discipline.
Yes,
very well read.
Yes, and I continue to learn. You know, I just turned 54 yesterday. I'm still learning every day.
So, Sergeant Washington, we like to start by telling our guests to tell us a little bit about their cultural background, who they are, where they grew up.
Okay.
So if you can address our audience.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm a son of sharecroppers. My parents came up from Greenwood, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
They would have come up in 1950, and then they came back a year later in 1951. They had a big flood here in Kansas City, Kansas, and Argentine. My parents actually came back that second time because of an incident my father had with the Ku Klux Klan. So to make a long story short, in order to avoid there being, as at that time I wasn't born. There were 7 of us. And I wasn't born until they arrived here and set up permanent residence in Kansas City, Kansas. And he came here and he worked as a baker's assistant at an old bakery that used to be off of, it was called Van Brunt. It's Emmanuel Cleaver Boulevard now. And it was called Cake Box Bakery. My father had learned how to work on cars in the South at that time as they sharecropped. Because he worked on tractors and combines. So his dream was to become a master mechanic, but he had less than a 3rd grade education.
Oh.
So he used to work on cars in the evening with a man by the name of Ernest Gayton, who at that time was an African American, but he looked Caucasian. And Ernest Gayton was a jet engine mechanic at the old Trans World Airlines. So Daddy would go over in the evenings, and Gayton had a garage in the back of his house, and he would work on cars. My father's first love was engine overhaul. He could rebuild, tear down, and rebuild an engine. And so Mr. Gayton convinced my mother, because my father wouldn't have it because he was afraid that he wasn't going to be able to perform academically, to go to the General Motors Institute of Technology. It was over off what is now called Shawnee Mission Parkway at that time. Daddy wanted to do engine overhaul, and Mr. Gayton told him, he said, Lynn, he said, I really do think you ought to consider going into automatic transmission. We were transitioning from what they call fluid drive to automatic, and hydromatic to automatic. And so my mother told him, she said, you need to do that. So my father went, graduated at the top of his class, and ended up opening up a garage at 1718 North 8th Street. It's right down the street from Sumner High School. At that time, the street went all the way through.
Yes.
And it was called Washington's Garage.
Wow.
And so that's where he got his start. Because my father worked on the parish priest and nuns' cars at that time. The parish priest convinced my father to put me in their schools. Now, they didn't have kindergarten, so I had to go to Old Douglas Elementary for the first year. It was half-day kindergarten, and then that next year, they enrolled me in what was known as Our Lady Parish. It later combined with St. Rose of Lima and became Our Lady in St. Rose at about 8th Street in Quindale.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you seen that building?
The
Yes.
building's still there, still
Yes.
standing there. Yes.
Okay. And I just found out, I found out not too long ago that he's also a Cyclone. He graduated from Bishop Ward High School.
Bishop Ward High School, yes.
Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this, but Bishop Ward High School actually had, it was because it was a private institution, it was the first institution in this area to allow, at least in Kansas City, Kansas, to allow African Americans and Hispanics to attend school, long before the Brown
versus
Topeka Board. So, and I mean, there is a historical thing going on there at Ward High School that very people know very little about it, from the very first, from judges to medical doctors, from the very first astronaut.
Absolutely.
Graduated from Bishop Ward High School.
Wow.
The first African American astronaut graduated from Bishop Ward High School.
Wow.
We learn something new every single day.
I continue to learn. I continue to learn.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Eddie Dwight.
Yes, he's also an accomplished artist, an accomplished sculptor. If you see his work on the traveling jazz work that he has done, it is amazing. He has done the statues for, I believe, Hank Aaron, probably some of the work that he has done for MLB is just incredible, phenomenal. Just a phenomenal artist, a man of very multifaceted, with PhD to master's degree, you name it. The man has it. If you get a chance to read his biography, it's just incredible. It's phenomenal.
Yes, sir.
It's phenomenal. There is always somebody out there who is willing to provide us with a helping hand. Always. And Mr. Dwayne, he says that he was too short to be a pilot, and but there was a high-ranking commander, a white commander, that basically told him, "Hey, we're going to stuff your shoes with paper or whatever it was," because I have listened to his lectures and made him high enough so that he could pass me and get into the program. But anyhow, so tell us, Sergeant Washington, tell us a little bit about this passion. How did you get involved with law enforcement? How did you get involved with serving our country, serving our community?
Well, I always wanted to give back. I was all of my relatives, my brothers and sisters, went to old Sumner High School. Sumner High School in those days, they have Sumner Academy now, but Sumner was an academy then.
Correct.
Some of the first blacks to accomplish things in our country came out of the old Sumner High School.
That is also true.
My parents brought me into the parochial school system because they saw that the public school system was changing. And by me being the youngest of 7, they felt that would be an opportunity. And they had an expectation of all of their children, but they had an expectation of me. My mother used to always tell me, we sacrificed a lot for you. So we expect you to accomplish. We expect you to give something back.
That's unfortunately that even today a lot of kids, in particular, and I'm going to address now minority kids. They don't see the sacrifices that a lot of people had committed themselves to in order to pave the route that if you're a major league ball player, you cannot make $10-15 million a year unless Jackie Robinson was there.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, Jackie Robinson opened the doors, not just for Black Americans, but also for Black Latinos who started to play in the major leagues. You know, I was just telling some friends that the first Latino to play in the major leagues in the All-Star game was a white Latino called Alfonso Carrasquel, known as Chico Carrasquel. He played for the White Sox and he was from Venezuela, but he was a white Venezuelan. So he was allowed to play. On the other hand, Puerto Rico already had major leaguers that were blacks, and at that time, they were not playing in the major league in the All-Star game. It's a tough deal, but people tend to forget what all the sacrifices that all these African Americans, Black people did in order for us to be standing here.
Well, and not only African Americans, because we also, in my experience working with our youth here, there's a lot of parents that leave their home countries to be here. They go through some crazy experiences, and you know, their children, a lot of times, not all of them, don't appreciate that sacrifice.
That is true.
You know, and it is depressing at times. It makes us upset. You know, how can you not see that?
Absolutely.
You know, but going back to you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So your parent, your at least your father, was a man that barely had a third grade education, but they emphasized education.
Absolutely.
Okay. So please continue.
So you know, having had those experiences and graduating from Bishop Ward, I really thought about becoming a fireman, and in those days, your parish priest had to recommend you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I went down, applied for the fire department, and didn't make the first cut. Got a letter saying you can reapply. So at that time, I was, you know, going to school. I was working nights for the school district as a custodian and going to school in the daytime because they didn't have distance education or online at that time, and I was going to Donley College in the daytime, and probably. I just had this notion because in my community at that time, the Black police officers and school teachers were held in high esteem.
Yes.
And I saw, you know, people, you know, Harold Simmons for one. He had been a young cop.
Harold Simmons, yes.
At that time, and they had beat cops that actually walked the beat in the community.
You had may he rest in peace. You have Captain Newsom.
Yeah, Newsom, Captain Hooks. At that time, you know.
At that time.
And so they were outstanding citizens. They were role models for us. And, you know, and I saw that, and in my heart, I sort of took a liking to it. And I had this inkling, you'll never be a police officer. So the opportunity came, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Department had a reserve sheriff's deputy program at that time. I applied, and they started a reserve class. I went through the Sheriff's Reserve Academy and completed it. And it was the strangest thing because I was talking about going into the military. All my family was traditional Army. And I had brothers, nephews, everybody were already in the Army Reserve or on active duty. And there was a man by the name of Sergeant Montgomery. He was my range instructor at the Sheriff's Department. And he heard me talking one day about going into the military. I said, yes, when I'm done with this, I'm going to go into the Army. I want to be an MP. And he said, excuse me. He said, Army? I said, yes, sir. He said, no. He said, got a better deal for you. He said, I'm going to invite you out to Richards Gabar Air Force Base when we have drill this month. I want you to come out. And he said, I guarantee you, he said, when you see how we do things Air Force wise versus Army, not taking anything away from it, he said, I think you will want to to join us. So I went out, spent a weekend with them, and it was the strangest thing because I raised my right hand that weekend.
Wow.
And joined the 442nd at Richards Gebauer. Went over to the MEPS Center that next week on a Tuesday to take my physical, and my Army recruiter said, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And he looked over my shoulder and saw my Air Force recruiter. He said, "Okay." I said, "Well, they offered me, because I wanted to be involved in law enforcement, and that's what I did in the military." And then I came back from my basic training tech school down at Lackland Air Force Base, and had an opportunity because I had a good classmate of mine that was a park ranger, and he saw me out at the lake one day fishing. He said, "Hey," he said, "look," he said, "I know you're a Sheriff's Reserve officer." He said, "How'd you like to be a park ranger for us?" I said, "I hadn't thought about it." And he set me up an interview, and I ended up becoming a Wyandotte County park ranger for UG part-time, because I was still working here. So I was doing all three. It was just in me, and having that experience of working for the district, working for the sheriff's office, and then also working as a park ranger just kept me connected with the community.
Oh, wow.
See, now by you explaining all this, it takes me back to like everything starts at home. Your parents, how they talk to you about your education, keeping you active, and then 3 jobs. Your dad did not have an education, so that is a break in the cycle, and doing better for ourselves.
Yeah.
Perhaps he didn't have a formal education,
yeah.
but in many ways he was an educated man.
Yes,
He was an educated
yes.
man. Yes, sir.
He was an educated man. Now, here you are working. You're part of the Air Force Reserve, correct?
Yeah. I retired in 2013.
I wanted to get to that. So you're working for the school district.
Yes, sir.
You're a reserve sheriff.
Yes, sir. I was.
Yes, so you have these 3 different jobs at the same time.
Yes, sir.
And so how many years did you spend with the Air Force?
I spent 27 years in the Air Force.
27 years with the Air Force. Now, how many years do you have? What is your experience as a law enforcement officer?
From 1985 as a reserve up until
the present time?
Yes, sir.
And at the present time, you happen to be a sergeant.
Yes, sir.
For the Kansas City, Kansas police,
School police.
School police,
Yes,
correct?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Wow, that is amazing. So you graduate from Bishop Ward High School.
Yes, sir.
You're taking classes at Untitled College.
Yes, sir.
So how far have you gone with your personal formal education?
Well, I actually earned 3 associate degrees. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of St. Mary's, a master's degree from Kent State University in secondary multicultural education, a doctorate from Faith Bible College in Christian counseling. And
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
See, but not only this, okay, and I know he's going to get to all this later on, he's also teaching at Kansas City, Kansas College.
The man is truly an intellectual. The man is truly an erudite. The man comes from a very humble background, but has never ceased to learn, has never ceased to educate himself. And sometimes we tend to put impediments in our lives. We create excuses over and over and over. And we live in a world of technology today. Sergeant Washington mentioned before that before you couldn't take classes online. Today you can be here and taking a class at the university in Cambridge, England, or you can be taking classes in Norway, but you're here in Kansas City. So we tend to create excuses. Absolutely. The world is not as big as we think it is anymore.
No.
I think so. What an amazing story. So you're also an adjunct professor at the Kansas City, Kansas Community College.
Yes, sir.
And what do you teach there, sir?
I teach in the teacher education program. It's a program that was started back in about 2006. The district wanted to have a pool of resources of possible teacher candidates, and they wanted to take those individuals that were already paraeducators or paraprofessionals and try to encourage them to get beyond an associate degree and to go on and get bachelor's degrees so that they could come back and bring that experience to the school district. My first class that I taught out there had 18 pairs in it. And I think they had anywhere from 5 to 15 years experience. And so being a non-traditional educator, it was a good thing for me because it allowed me to lay the foundation for those who might aspire to become educators if they had someone to incentivize them and give them that encouragement. So I started teaching as an adjunct in about 2003 there, because I'd just come back from a tour had just come back from completing a tour in Qatar. We say Qatar, but it's actually pronounced Qatar. Yeah.
Qatar. Oh,
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I spent a little over a year there on active duty.
Wow.
So now you see why I said that I continue to learn from this man every day, every day. There is always something different. There is always something that he brings into my life that I had no idea, no clue. I take it all in. You know, I'm learning. I'm open to all this, you know, because I don't know it all. But the more that I can learn, especially from people like you guys, both of you, you know, I'm game. I'm not gonna feel like, hey, you know, I can't do this because, you know, I'm Martin Cervantes, I know it all. No. So yeah, just hanging out with him. We work together a lot in the school district, and we communicate a lot.
Yes.
Which that's what we're trying to teach here, or let people know that communication truly matters. It's not about him. It's not about me. It's about our kids. It's about our district. It's about our community. So we continue to communicate even after work. I will get a phone call, I will get a text, you'll get a phone call, you get a text from me.
Yes.
Because it never stops. The communication never stops.
Absolutely.
So obviously, you have been building one block at a time to get to where you are right now. And you use the word incentivized. How do we inspire kids today, young people today, to understand that we are living perhaps in one of the most outstanding, perhaps the most outstanding times in human history? You know, we are 3 men of color right here.
Yes, sir.
There was a time where the 3 of us would not have been allowed to walk into restaurants, eat at the same place, or use the same water fountain,
Absolutely.
simply because of our skin color. How do you tell kids, listen, you can succeed no matter what, no matter how tough you think it might be, you can succeed if you put your mind, your goals, if you put your desire into this?
Yes, sir.
How do you do that though? How especially in a culture today, this culture seems to be what I call a ready-made culture, where kind of like the old cartoons, the Wile E. Coyote, add water and the Acme product will come up. You know, I want it now.
Yeah.
It's now or never,
Yeah.
because my suffering is greater than yours. How do you do that? I mean, how do we do that in a culture where everybody has a $2,000, not everybody, but, and you know, people are buying $700 cell phones like it's nothing.
First thing, you got to be the living, breathing example. You as an individual. This is not who I am. This is one of the things that I do. This does not define me. This is just one of the things that I do. By the grace of God, I'm able to do it. So we have to be humble. You have to be a living, breathing example for those children, for your community, for your relatives to see. Now, for me, I've had to go back and rededicate myself. And you know this because he was there with me. In 2015, my son was born after I retired from the military 2 years after. And so I have a 6-year-old.
Wow.
See, so that is my driving force right now. Not only to make a better world for him, but to continue to make the self-sacrifice for those who would come after us, because we're not always going to be able to carry the baton.
No.
You see? So having that passion, the purpose of education is to use it to do something to improve on the human condition.
Correct.
That's the purpose of it. It makes no sense to amass knowledge if you want to try to hold it all to yourself. Oh, this, look at what I know, this is who I am. No. See, so to make that sacrifice. And so when our young people see us as mentors, living, breathing examples that they can reach out and touch in the community, that gives them that hope that, hey, I can do this. If Mr. Cervantes is doing it, if Mr. Santiago, you have taught many, 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 many young men and women the discipline through the martial arts. You have sacrificed, self-sacrificed. I know you have, because I've been right there with you. I've been here with both of you. You're both humble men, very humble men. You're unselfish. You're willing to give of yourself. You're approachable. And so when you're approachable, there's an aura about you that emanates. People look at you and say, I don't know him, but there's something about them that draws me to them. And that's what we have to be for our young people.
Wow.
Go ahead, Mr. C.
I'm inspired. Well, thank you for those kind words.
I was about to cry here for a second. I apologize.
No, and you know, thank you.
Yeah, the sentimentalism gets to me. And you said something about knowledge. There are people out there that they acquire knowledge, and they just keep it to themselves. They don't, and they have very understanding of the knowledge that they have acquired, and they don't share it. And I always tell this in the martial arts classes that I teach, that anybody can acquire knowledge, but understanding that knowledge is something else. And then the application of that knowledge, not just me, but many holy books called the wisdom.
Yes, sir.
The wisdom.
Yes, sir.
That is the most difficult part. That very few people get there. And I know that I have a long way before I get there. And actually in the martial arts we speak about this. In the Japanese martial arts they talk about shuhari. You learn from tradition. You break away from tradition, understanding tradition.
Yes, sir.
Right? And then you apply that wisdom, but you always go back to the root, to those who came before you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And sometimes, we have a very difficult time understanding that. So I want to ask you this. Tell us a little bit about your martial arts experience. That is a topic that I love, and I'm a firm believer that if it was up to me, we should have a martial arts after school curriculum.
Yes, I agree.
In every school.
Yes, sir.
From elementary school, middle school, high school, and colleges.
Yes, sir.
Because the martial arts is just more than punching and kicking, yelling, breaking a board, and throwing somebody to the ground.
Absolutely.
It is a discipline.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when I talk to my African American martial arts students, I speak about the great Moses Powell.
Yes.
And
Dr. Moses.
Dr. Moses Powell. Yeah. Very people. Right here in the Midwest, very few people know about Dr. Moses Powell, and in George Cofield.
Yes.
And no longer Steve Sanders.
Steve Sanders.
The man who inspired Bruce Lee.
Grandmaster
Steve Sanders. So we forget these people that paid the route for us to be here. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your martial arts experience.
Grandmaster Steve Sanders, Grandmaster Steve Muhammad was actually from Topeka. And yes. Was a Marine and went away and studied, as did a lot of African Americans in those days, because you travel to Okinawa, Japan, Hawaii, and various Korea, and and they studied martial arts. But actually, my first exposure, growing up in the '60s with the Green Hornet, and Cato, everybody wanted to be Cato. So probably when I was a sophomore, there used to be a martial arts academy at about 51st and Leavenworth Road. It was called Jayhawk Academy of Martial Arts.
Dr.
Terry Stanton.
Terry Stanton. Dr. Terry Stanton.
He was a chiropractor by profession, but he was also a martial artist, and he taught jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And he also taught
Kobudo and
yes,
Hayashiha.
yes, Shito-ryu, absolutely.
Yes.
And taught judo.
Yes.
So once again, my father being a mechanic, he worked on his cars, and he said, Lynn, I think your son would probably like to get involved. He said, I'll trade you some jiu-jitsu lessons for some work, and that's how my father did. They bought it in those days, And at that time, I was probably like a sophomore or junior at Bishop Ward, And so I got into the jiu-jitsu thing, and I like the falling and the rolling. I made it up to brown belt, and then Stanton's father got sick, and a lot of things occurred, and so I kind of strayed away from the martial arts for a while, and then I met a man by the name of Walter Justice.
Walter Justice.
Just prior to going into the military, he's now senior grandmaster Walter Justice, and he had just come back out of the military. He had been in the Air Force. I'm contemplating going into the Air Force. And his brother introduced me, and we used to work out at Washington High School. And he lifted weights out there in the evening. So he started teaching me his derivative of Tang Sudo.
Yes.
And he was into Tracy Kempo.
Yes. The Tracy brothers, and they actually had Joe Louis, not the American boxer, the Brown Bomber, but Joe Louis, the pioneer of American full contact karate.
Yes.
Later on called American kickboxing.
Yes, sir.
And had so many people under their belt, including Bob Wall, who appeared in several movies.
Wall, yes, sir.
With Bruce Lee, and
absolutely.
And he goes on and on. Roger Green was another individual that he had from Oklahoma, and so many different people.
Yeah. So I trained with him. I went away to the military, came back. Upon coming back, I met another brother by the name of Master Reginald Montgomery. He passed last year.
Yes.
So we lost him. So I actually ended up training with both of them simultaneously for probably about 30 years.
Wow.
And there was no conflict because our philosophy was the same in terms of martial arts are cousins. We're all cousins.
They're all the same.
We call ourselves different styles, different systems, but the origin of the martial arts itself is a derivative in Africa, and then migrated out into other parts of what we call Asia. Now, you see, Master Montgomery was a student of Grandmaster Chun Li, so he taught the ITF version of Taekwondo.
Yes.
So Master Justice then began to develop his knowledge of Kempo and entered into the Parker system. So we had a combination of the Tracy system and the American Kempo system, because Al Tracy and his brother were originally students of Ed Parker. You see, and then Parker went off into a new concept of Kempo.
Yes, Kempo.
And the Tracys didn't want to learn a new system, so they stuck with the old original.
Ed Parker, William Chai Sao.
Yes.
William Chow.
James Mitosi.
Dr. James Mitosi.
I feel like I'm learning a whole different language here. It's like, wow.
Patience.
What's that?
Wait. The lesson I learned was that the black belt knows how to do it, really, but the master knows why you do it, when you do it. You see? And although belt color shows is the Grandmaster Parker used to say, he had sayings. Although belt color shows, it is no proof that you know. It is no proof that you know. And martial arts is more than just about fighting, punching. It's about communicating with oneself, disciplining oneself. Once again, sacrificing, humility. You can never get away from the whole notion of humility.
Yes.
Having the respect for one's elders, having the respect for those who paved the way prior to you. You share a very unique connection with me, because for a while, Marion Rudder was my instructor, who was also a student of your instructor. You remember the patch with the bear claw?
Yes,
I am.
Albert Mercado Sensei.
Yeah, absolutely. See.
One of the most astounding traditionalist karatekas I ever known in my life.
Yes, sir. So I studied just a little bit of Shotokan under Sensei Albert Mercado.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
So we have that connection. So even though we different paths, we still come right back to the same roots in our foundation.
Yes.
You know, men of honor, men of integrity, you know, men of principle, men of discipline, men who would make the sacrifice for their students. There was times when instructors did not, you didn't have the money, so you cleaned the dojo.
Yes.
To earn your way. To earn your way. To earn
I
food.
cleaned the dojo many times.
Yeah. Well, you know, something that just came up to my mind. You're also a Mason.
Yes, sir.
You know, what degree?
Well, actually, I'm a 33rd degree Mason, which is on the Scottish Rite side. So there's two sides you can go up. You go up the older side, which is the York Rite, and that leads you to the Order of the Knights Templar. On the other side, you have the Scottish Rite, which takes you to the 33rd, or the Grand Inspector General. Then in the middle, you have your shrine, which is autonomous and independent of both houses or both or organizations. I currently serve as the Grand Marshal for the Prince Hall Grand Lodge State of Kansas in this jurisdiction.
So I mean, really, this is a man.
What is it that you don't do?
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. I mean,
Is it?
it's like we're speechless now.
No,
Like,
is it the fact that you are inspired by learning, this process of continuous learning, learning, that drives you to not necessarily say, well, I'm going to achieve this. It's more like I'm going to learn, and maybe this learning might take me someplace.
Yes, sir. And my parents, as an inspiration, my mother and father, because like I said, they sacrificed tremendously. They didn't have the formal education, but they were very wise people. And it was just the notion of coming up in those times and listening to the stories that my parents shared with me about the sacrifices they made in Mississippi. It inspired me to become an achiever, but sometimes overachieve, not for the sake of saying, look at who I am, look at what I've done, but for the sake of being able to, if you remember, I originally said, take the knowledge, convert it to wisdom, and use it to do something to improve the human condition.
wow. Now, you have all this experience, you have all this knowledge, patience. How have you been able to put that to work in our school district, dealing with our students?
I take a look at the students and I don't see them any different from myself. And then I think about my 6-year-old, what I'm sacrificing for him. Prior to my 6-year-old being born, I probably raised 20,000 kids or so. You know, somewhere down the road, in all the years that I've spent working in this community and in this district. So you're going to learn what's important to a child. Here's the deal: you'll never be 16 years old again. None of us will.
Never.
No.
But we have to understand what is important to a 16-year-old today.
Today, it's a different world.
Had good mentors who shared with me this concept. As you age, do it gracefully, but also keep a fresh mind. My mentor passed in 2007 when I was in Rochester, New York at a leadership conference. But before I left, he shared with me, he said, here's the key to being relevant. He said, I like to be around young people. And I laughed at him. I thought, he said, oh, brother, he said, listen. He said, because they keep your mind fresh. They keep your mind active. He said, so, it's okay to, because I have colleagues that started teaching in the 60s and 70s. That's cool. But how is that relevant to a young person today? And that's what they want to know.
Correct.
So if you can take what you have learned, and then the formal, informal knowledge and wisdom, and condense it and deliver it to them in such a way that they can digest it, They will.
They will.
Because they want to know. And they want to know what you know.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you've been here, because you've lived, you've experienced. It's something that they have not reached that point. See? So our feet, path, walking one foot in front of the other in a straight line, not having tunnel vision, being able to see around you, all of the wonders of the 360 degrees of where we sit today is important.
Yeah, I try to do that myself, surround myself with young people. But sometimes I think it's just too hard to, I guess, understand them. Or maybe I'm not completely open-minded. One thing that I've learned because of what I do for the district, is to listen.
Absolutely.
To listen so I can get to know them. So I can see their needs. I can see where they're coming from. I can see what they're dealing with. And I know you guys do that. As police officers, you are the front line in our school district.
Absolutely.
And I know you guys are our first mentors in the district because you are able to de-escalate situations. And after that, you create relationships with these young men and women. So to me, I mean, I get paid to be a mentor. You guys get paid to be police officers, but at the same time, you are a mentor in our district, the whole department, And I want to get to that. What is the role of the police department in our school district? I think a lot of people, we don't know exactly what your role is, what you guys do as police officers.
Well, the first thing is to create an atmosphere that's conducive to learning, that's safe and conducive to learning. That is the foremost mission that we have as school-based police officers. And since then, having been an SRO for a number of years of this ward, And so, because if you cannot have a safe environment conducive to learning, then you're not going to be able to have that. You're not going to be able to manifest that and maintain and sustain that learning environment. But beyond that, then, educator, informal counselor, and basically the law enforcement side, not to lessen it, because there's times when you really do have to do your job, in terms of perhaps making an arrest. But we want kids to see us as that outlet, like I said, to transcend this uniform. So when they see us, we're approachable. They want to come up to you and they want to tell you about what went on the weekends. It wasn't uncommon at J.C. Harmer that myself and my partner would be in the middle of 35, 40 kids, and they would just be who they were because they weren't intimidated by us being there. So you learned a lot about what was going on in the community. You learned what was going on in the school culture itself, because the schools have unique cultures. Then you learn about the culture of the school in relation to the community that surrounds the school. All these things you do as a school police officer. We were doing community policing essentially before the concept of community policing was really developed and implemented. But we do a different type of community policing because most of us go to church, shop, in the communities that we live in, and that's very important because kids have to be able to see you, and you heard me say earlier, they have to be able to reach out and touch you and say, this is a real person, this is a real person, and they really care about me. They think that I matter as a student, and this is how you break down the walls. They could take us at any time. 1,500 kids could take 2 officers at any time.
Absolutely.
Why don't they? Because of that respect.
Exactly.
That mutual respect.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, sir, how especially, when people tend to stereotype, humans tend to stereotype what they don't know. We fear what we don't know, and we stereotype based on certain stereotypes could be true. We can always debate that, but we tend to stereotype others based on the way they talk, based on the way their skin color, the way they walk, or with whom they associate. How do you humanize what you do as a law enforcement officer? How do you make these kids, or as a matter of fact, parents, teachers, how do you make them look, how do you make them understand, not by force necessarily, but how do you make them understand that, look, I am a human being just like you? You look at them face to face and you see them for and accept them for who they are and not who you want them to be. See, because your kids are going to come to you and they're going to have all kinds of issues, all kinds of problems, and they don't want you to be judgmental.
So you look at them and you accept them for who they are. Now you know who you might want them to gravitate towards, or who you might want them to stay away from, but you don't tell them that. So when they come to you, or they get in trouble, or something happens, and they tell you about things that are happening in their lives, you don't judge them for that.
Mm-hmm.
You look at them and you extend your hand. Same thing with a parent that comes in that's upset or whatever, it's hostile. You extend your hand first, not as a police officer, but one human being to another human being.
Mm-hmm.
And then that breaks down, that tears down that wall, that establishes that line of communications. It says to that other person, hey, this person is not judging me. This person is not using that badge or that shield of authority. They're meeting me on common ground, face to face.
Mm-hmm.
You never front people off.
Yeah.
You always give them that opportunity to vent. You always provide them with that outlet, that back door. Because if you get in a group of kids and you surround them and you front them off and you don't give them that opportunity to vent or to save face, so to speak, that's when they're going to retaliate and come back at you. And then that's when you're going to have to be the police officer.
Mm-hmm.
At that point.
Now, when does the administrators call you within the building? I mean, is it when to walk the hallways, to go into the gym, to there's a kid that doesn't want to leave the classroom?
Mm-hmm.
When are you called to intervene in situations?
You know, it all depends. You've got a new generation of administrators now in this district. We've gone through several transitions, and we're going through a transitory time now with new leadership. But the old school administrators would call you for just about anything. Johnny doesn't have a pencil. So and so won't behave. He won't do what I tell him. That's not the job or the role of a school resource officer, of a police officer. That is an administrative function. That is something that can be better handled sometimes through classroom management. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of young educators and administrators that maybe don't have the experience that they need. They have the formal education, but they've not been educated in how to apply what it is that they've learned. Practical application.
The practical application.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you have to know how to vet and how to screen. It's not saying that you're not going to go, but if it doesn't require me to be there, I'm taking an administrator with me.
What if John is just sleeping on his desk, doing nothing, non-participating? Do they call you, or do they call the administrator?
Sometimes they'll call you and say, well, he's got his head down, she's got his head down, they won't pay attention. And so then you learn how to negotiate your way through that, so that you don't put the teacher on blast, but that teacher then, he or she has to step forward and say, hey, look, there's something called code of conduct, there's something called pick up the phone and call the child's parents, and have that intervention between the teacher, the administration, the child, the school counselor. There are resources and tools there, but I think that somewhere along the line we became the default mechanism. So that's why you have to use your experience, your education experience and knowledge of this job, not to allow yourself to be used that way. Because that can create a lot of animosity. You can end up in a situation that you should not have been in as a school, resource officer. Something that should have been handled by the school
administration. Woo! Achieving that empirical experience, that empirical truth, as you said, it takes more than just a book.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, to paraphrase Lee Shaolong, aka Bruce Lee.
Yes, sir.
You can read all the books you want about swimming, but if you don't get in that water, you're never going to learn how to swim.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a tough deal, because there are people out there that they think that because they have a formal education also, or they have read all these books, they know more than the person that have actually go through the actual waters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure you probably saw your father, his experience in auto mechanics and all this. He knew, and somebody was actually telling me this about his brother, who is a master construction worker, who knows everything about construction and is called by engineers for his opinion
Yes.
when they are building these edifices and things. How do we do this? But these are the guys that know everything about the books,
Yeah.
but not necessarily about the actual construction.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm sure you saw that. I'm sure you saw that with your father, because I
Yes.
saw that with my stepdad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, who was also an Untitled County guy. Who,
Yeah.
you know, he knew-
Now, for some of the people that might say that you guys are rent-a-cops, I know you're not, because you actually are certified
Yes, sir.
that you went to training,
Yes.
you know, the police academy, whatever you want to call it, or
Yes, sir.
in Hutchinson, right?
Yes, sir. We're fully have the railroad cops.
Yes.
We have KCK. So there are a lot of law enforcement entities here in the metropolitan area.
Oh, that doesn't include the federal agencies
Absolutely.
that are everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, you'll get that because our uniform is different. Our badges may say something different. Our patrol units may be different. But as a police officer, like I said, you have to transcend that. You just have to since they back to school, as you know, it goes with the territory. People are going to say things derogatory.
Yes.
A part of becoming a professional, a law enforcement professional, is the ability to absorb these things, these hits, these punches, these jabs,
Yes.
and or to just deflect, sidestep, parry. You know what I'm saying?
No difference from the martial arts. It's the
Absolutely,
same.
absolutely. The principles are the same, because you can reasonably expect that for every 2 or 3 people that like you, you're going to have 5 or 6 that may not because you've ever done anything to them, but just because the notion
badge.
of what this represents.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what does the future, at least in your, I mean, we cannot predict the future, of course, but at least based on your experiences, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Is your plan perhaps after you get done doing what you do as a school resource officer, as a law enforcement officer, is your future perhaps to become a full-time educator?
That and yes, but I think my passion right now, and I've shared this with you before too, I'm a professional life coach and a career life coach. So the whole notion of life coaching is not new. You guys are life coaches. We've been doing it for years. It's just no one really knew that that's what we were doing. There's a trend to move away from not move away from the traditional forms of theory of therapy that you see with psychologists and psychiatrists and clinical social workers. The life coach is sort of the kinder, more gentler. There are certain certifications and things that you can get as a life coach, but that goes along with the whole notion of the mentoring process, being there as a resource for people who are maybe having issues with home, family, marriages, relationship, depression, because we're living in a society now that's bombarded. Prior to COVID, we were already starting to see declines, not just in our K through 12 system, but in the overall mental health of our society, because no one wants that stigma. So I think along with continuing to serve the community as an educator, also serving as a mentor, life coach, and a career coach. That's something that I want to do. I'm not looking for money. I'm looking for that notion, and that I have the reason to serve. I'm just looking for that avenue to be able to serve. And then, once again, I have to go back to my son. He's 6 years old. I've got to pave the way. My father did it for me. I've got to do it for him.
Wow.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, you have a story to tell, and I honestly think that you should be speaking in front of the masses. That's how I see it. I've always admire and have this immense respect for you from the first time that we met each other, and I've always been fascinated by how calm you are, how mellow you are. But now having this conversation, I'm beginning to understand the reasons why you are the way you are. And
Yeah.
this immense respect that I already knew this from having conversations with other officers who knew you, that you're always seeking knowledge, that you're always seeking that understanding, and ultimately that wisdom. And sometimes we tend to look at people and immediately, just because, like I said before, the way they look or whatever, oh, he might be just a meek individual, or you know, it's like, I gotta wear glasses now because I cannot see, and I'm not wearing the glasses right now because I see a lot of reflection on the on the camera.
Yes, sir.
But I have this immense respect, and I just want you to know that I have this immense respect for you. That every time you speak to me, I'm like, man, this is a man of wisdom. And I feel like I have a bag right here, and every time you talk, it's in my bag. It goes in my bag, and I carry that with me.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I would like to. I would love to invite you one of these days to come and visit our little dojo.
Yes, sir.
We'll be honored to have you.
There's been a few years because I was over there. Oh, I want to say about maybe 7 years ago. I remember I came in on a Saturday. And you had another older gentleman that was a KCK police officer working at that time that was working out with you. Black gentleman, kind of heavy set. He was KCK officer.
Oh,
Had his son
Romeo.
with him. Yes, had his son. with him.
Romeo Riley.
Yeah,
Romeo
yeah,
Riley.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he actually moved. Recently moved to Florida.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Absolutely.
He actually became a black belt
Absolutely.
in our dojo with us. Wow.
Well, we're running. I'm sorry, we're running out of time. We don't
But
want to take too much time.
Before we go, is there something else that you would like to tell our listeners or audience, in particular our youth?
You know, as you come up, everybody needs somebody. You cannot survive in this world alone. You cannot survive in this world alone. So everyone needs someone. So don't ever get it in your mind that, oh, I'm doing this thing on my own. You just don't understand me. Someone out there will listen. And I'm going to tell you this. I learned this from my father. Good men surround themselves with great individuals so that they might live to make the sacrifices that will help us all make a difference.
Wow.
That's how it is.
Wow. Well, throughout this time that we have been doing the DOTTE Pod, I don't think I have met anyone more inspirational, anyone more real, more empirical than Sergeant Washington.
Yes.
We thank you so much from
Yeah.
the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, it's been an
So
honor
much.
working with you. It's been a pleasure. It's been really out of this world working with you.
As a matter of
Seriously.
I
Seriously.
tell you this, I have a. I'm about to choke myself out because I feel extremely emotional right now conversing with you. You know,
Yeah.
I hope we can do this more often outside this
Yes, sir.
camera that is looking at us right now. And
Well, you two are my brothers. Yeah.
You
Thank
know,
you so
sir,
much.
you know,
Absolutely.
thank you,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
and we want to
Absolutely.
thank you for your time,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
for sharing all this life stories, your story, your life, and your goals, and who you are with us, and everybody that is listening. We thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
We I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Working with you
Likewise.
has been an honor. It's
Likewise.
just-
Yes,
and
sir.
I continue to learn. I continue to learn. So
Thank you, everybody. Remember, we are on Facebook and also on YouTube. Follow us, thumbs up. Everything that we do is about being positive. We don't want anything that is negative. The negative is already there, but I believe
We want
that
to
the
change it.
positive things
Yes.
are greater than what is
Yes,
negative.
yes.
Okay. If
Rem-
you want to see negative things, watch the news. Otherwise, listen to
watch
us.
the DOTTE Pod. Yeah.
And like
Remember,
Mr. C, go ahead, Mr. C.
you're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. Look forward. Don't look back, okay? It takes a village. We are part of this village. You are part
Absolutely.
of our village. Let's make a difference. Till next time. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
We made it. Thank you, sir.